Hey everybody, hope you're all doing well. My name is Steven and this is the Storytime channel. We've got some pro-revenge stories today, so let's jump right into our first one of the day by Dujin Connoisseur. Tread a stiff rent money owed? Enjoy having your drug habit exposed and losing your new house. The story. My dad had tried his hand in renting out houses, albeit it's only one house and he had only one renter. He's a soft-heart and couldn't bear to force a family into the streets when rent wasn't paid. The renter was his work colleague and they were acquainted at best. This man would give every excuse in the book when he couldn't pay his rent, all of them relating to his toddler son. Medical bills for his son, formula and diapers, birthday gifts, so on and forth. My dad accepted these excuses, allowing his colleague to delay the payment and never once tried to deduct from the deposit. 6 months later, his renter decided to move out. Turns out the jackbutt bought himself a nice terrace house out in a good suburban area. He knew my dad was a patient and generous man and decided to take advantage of that. My dad, in his words, was pissed, but more than that, disappointed. He decided that he'll stop renting as he figured he would lose more than what he'll earn. Thus, the house was sold. A few days later, my dad approached his colleague wanting to know why he'd stiffed him out of his rent money. This took place in the middle of the office with everyone still at their cubicles or milling around. Dad said, "Colleague, I've heard you bought a house. If you had money for the house, why couldn't you pay for the rent?"
"You know or not, my son keeps falling sick. Ever since I stayed at that house you rent, my son always has a fever, always coughing."
"What does that got to do with me or that house?"
"I think I know why. That house is haunted. Got jinn."
Genie, malevolent or mischievous.
"And shaitan."
Devil/demon.
"You're a new Muslim convert, right? Something must have pissed at you for converting. Because of that, my son is suffering."
For context, us Malaysians still hold on to some superstition, though it's more prevalent in the older generations. Be it due to culture or religion, superstitious beliefs are still embedded here. A rented house being haunted usually means little to no potential renters and a sullied reputation. This ticked my dad off. At this point, everyone had tuned into this drama being unfolded. Raising his voice, he laid down the truth bomb. "I stayed in that house for 2 years with my wife and small children. Nothing happened. You know why your son keeps falling sick? When I went to inspect that house to sell it, the whole place reeked of drugs. Every room in the house smells like marijuana. Your son keeps falling sick because you smoked drugs around him 24/7. If you've ever been slammed by the truth so hard that it left you speechless, that was essentially what happened. Colleague was stunned, mouth opening and closing like a fish gasping for breath, before turning and walking away. My dad, having vented that, left to do his own business. Colleague not denying outright that he didn't do drugs caused the rumor to spread like wildfire, with him ending up needing to do a drug test. Unsurprisingly, he failed that, which led to him being let go. Now, you may think it's the end. Drug use in Malaysia is seriously frowned upon here, even if you do it recreationally. Not to mention that other job prospects usually looked into your record and reason for resigning from your last job. Having being let go due to failing a drug test is an automatic resume into the bin. No job means no income. No income means colleague can't make the monthly installments for his new house. As my dad found out, it has been auctioned off by colleague's bank to another buyer. As he told me this, my dad never wanted to ruin colleague's life like that. He told me he should have just kept his mouth shut, that him knowing colleague was doing drugs in close proximity to his son was good leverage for colleague to pay his rent. It was a in the heat of the moment action and such. Dad never pressed to get his 6 months of rent money back. Considered it halal, meaning in his eyes, colleague's debt to him was voided. I don't know. Perhaps this was just karma by God for colleague lying to my dad and stiffing him his rent money. Just needed my dad to be a pawn in his plan to punish colleague in this life. The revenge was undeniably unplanned, but gosh darn, it is pro to me. Definitely a unplanned pro-revenge. That said, if this was you and you had the chance to think about it, would you have just outed him like that and basically ruined his opportunity of getting a new job altogether? Or would you have just tried to use it as leverage to get your 6 months of rent back? Let me know in the comments down below. Our next story is also by Dujin Connoisseur. Try to squeeze my dad for his money? Tough luck. He knows money. The background. Back during the 1997 Asian financial crisis, Malaysia was hit pretty hard, especially the small independent banks. The Prime Minister at the time, Tun Dr. Mahathir Mohamad, passed a bill to save the banking economy by having all the larger corporate banks buy out the smaller independent banks. At the same time, he made the One Malaysia Home Loan Policy. Under this, all larger banks that bought out the smaller independent banks must send an acknowledgement letter to the home loaners of their original banks stating the home loan changed and must receive an acknowledgement from their new loaners, be it a signature, physical, or digital. The story. My dad never liked how banks can legally rob people. For people like him who work the daily grind, having to pay the bank what is essentially 2 houses worth in interest payments over 2 or 3 decades is just plain wrong in his eyes. He strives to one day screw a bank over like how they screw their customers. A contract. Be it sheer dumb luck, or is God listening to his prayers and decided him to grant that opportunity? That was what he got. When my dad bought our family's first home, he got a loan from a small bank called DCB Bank. All is well until a few years later the 1997 financial crisis hit. As the small banks were bought out by the larger banks, many homeowners received acknowledgement papers on their new home loan payment plan and policies by their new banks. My dad, for whatever reason, never received this. He only knew that his original bank was bought over by the RHB Bank Corporation and that he is now unofficially their customer. My dad was frugal with his money and, God bless him, financially literate. He knew that if he made a full settlement against his principal loan, he can avoid paying 30 years worth of interest installments. Sometime in 2007, he went to a RHB Bank branch nearby to make a full settlement, and this is how it went down. RHB employer, I'm sorry sir, even if you made a full settlement, you would still need to continue making payments for the interest. Dad said, what do you mean? I have a home loan contract under DCB that states I can make a full settlement without paying for additional interests. The RHB employer said, true, but since you've acknowledged and signed under RHB, Dad said, I've never received the acknowledgement papers. I've never signed any papers from your bank, and all I have here is the DCB Bank contract. The employer said, sir, under the One Malaysia Home Loan... Dad said, you have to send acknowledgement letters about the loan transfer. Yes, I know. What I want now is for you, RHB Bank, to produce my signature of me acknowledging the new loan policy for RHB. As of now, my paper with DCB is still valid until you produce my signature. Cue 1 hour of the employer and her colleagues scrambling around their files and databases trying to find any acknowledgement from my dad about their loan contract. At this time, the manager of the bank had called my dad into his office to discuss this problem. It basically had went from civil to a shouting match that can be heard in the neighboring food stalls. My dad couldn't remember most of what was said, but the end of it was what he could still clearly remember, and to his son, it was probably one heck of a bad butt convo-ender. The manager said, I'm sorry, Mr. Mohammed, but you still need to make the interest payments regardless of whether you make a full settlement. Alright, I understand. I'll just have to take this up to Bank Negara, National Bank of Malaysia. Let them help me find that signature of mine. My dad had the bank manager by the balls now. Rather risking a potential $1 million lawsuit and possibly losing his job, he excused himself to make a few phone calls to upper management, which took about half an hour. After said phone calls were done, the manager approached my dad and agreed to the full settlement without the additional interest installments. To add salt to the wound, my dad requested that they have his housing grant ready within the week, to which they delivered. All in all, my dad managed to secure himself a house, the housing grant, and in the process screwed RHB Bank of what is equal to 60,000 USD worth of interest payments, which to a middle-class Malaysian in 2007 is a retirement fund. I think you can only have respect for OP's father in this situation. It's completely the bank's fault that they never got the acknowledgement letter out to the father. If they had done that, this wouldn't have been possible. I'm surprised that a few years later they wouldn't have realized that they missed some people and had some secondary wave of acknowledgement letters going out or something. This next story is written by thisisdrivingmebatty. Badmouth me and assume I don't speak the language? I'll kill you with kindness. I am a light-skinned Latina American and I've lived in Korea for a couple of years during university and grad school, as my major was Korean interpretation and translation. During my time in Korea, I was lucky enough to attend music shows from time to time. For the K-pop uninitiated, music shows are free to enter, provided you have at least one of three items. A copy of the album of the group you're coming to see. B, proof of purchase of the album digitally on one of the approved music vendors in Korea. Or C, the official light stick from the most recent concert. Priority entry was always given to official fan club members who had all three, then fan club members who had two of the three, and then fan club members who had one. After that came non-members in the same priority tier. The group I had come to see hadn't opened official fan club registration in almost a decade, so the group's management decided to do away with the fan club priority and did it on a first-come, first-served basis, but kept the whole 3 items go first, then 2, then 1 thing. I had all 3 and I got there early, so I got a good spot in line. These queues often had us waiting outside for hours while the previous round of filming finished up. The thing about these music show venues is they're very small. They have limited capacity and allow 2 to 3 groups of fans in to watch them film at a time. So not all people who queue for a group get in. In this particular instance, there was trouble with foreign fans causing trouble by taking pictures, not listening to instructions, so venue staff literally went through and quizzed each foreigner in line on their Korean. If you couldn't understand, you were booted. I passed with flying colors and kept my spot in line. Here's where the revenge starts. Because of the aforementioned issues, a lot of Korean fans hated international fans with a passion. For this group in particular, so many people were pissed that they had to wait in line behind foreigners because they'd done away with the official fan club priority. Now here's me, sitting alone in a queue outside on a hot summer day. A group of Korean girls sat in front of me and a lone Korean girl talking on her phone sat behind me. I was minding my own business playing games on my phone after passing my Korean quiz with the staff when I heard the girl behind me talking crap. She was chatting with a friend, I suspect, because she was dropping a lot of curse words and specifically mentioned, "These foreign roaches ruining things for us. I want to kill them." She mentioned me in particular and said that she bet I'd bribe the staff to keep my spot in line even though I couldn't understand Korean. Okay, so it's harmless crap talk. I don't know this girl and I don't know her friend. In the long run, it doesn't affect me, right? But it really rubbed me the wrong way, especially because she was talking quite loudly. So I grabbed my wallet, politely and quietly asked the Korean girls in front of me to watch my bag and hold my place in line and went to the convenience store. I bought a round of water for everyone. It was heavy. I had about a dozen bottles of water. I get back to my spot in line, thanked the girls in front of me for holding my spot, then gave them each a water. I gave a water to the group in front of them too. Then I kept one for myself and turned around and handed one to the girl on the phone with a smile. Immediately, she lit up and thanked me in English, smiling bright and taking her phone away from her ear. As I hand her water, I say in perfect Korean and still smiling, "The next time you loudly crap talk the foreigners, make sure they can't actually understand you." When I tell you it went silent in the immediate area, you could hear a pin drop. Her smile melted off her face faster than an ice cream cone on Florida pavement. She turned bead red and muttered to her friend on the phone that she had to go and sheepishly apologized. I accepted, she had water, and I felt better about myself. Bonus, the girls in front of me heard the whole thing and adopted me into their group for the day. Fun was had all around. There's something so extra satisfying about these kinds of stories. I absolutely never get tired of these kinds of stories where somebody's crap talking somebody thinking they can't understand the language, and then boom, you're just able to just lay it on them. One good blow that absolutely shocks them to their core. And our final story of the day is by kielbasawho. Disgruntled Walmart lady doesn't like that she can't park in reserved parking. I work at a Walmart, specifically the online grocery pickup section. For anyone that doesn't get the basics of it, basically you place a prepaid order online, we shop it for you, then bring it out and load it into your car. Pretty simple. We are decently busy pretty much all day, and as expected, we have reserved parking spots, specifically 12 for the customers to come pull in so we can easily load their groceries. On one fateful day, we were rather busy and the weather was quite bad, raining. This random lady pulls into spot number 12, so naturally I go outside to talk to her to get her name and order number and whatnot. Hi, how you doing today? Good. Do you have an online order for pickup? No. She steps out of her car and begins to walk inside. Well, if you don't have an online order, you can't park here. This is reserved parking for our customers. Okay. And she casually ignores me and proceeds inside. Our manager printed notice papers to put on windshields for butt hats like her. They're nothing special, just made of paper. I took around 12 and lined her entire windshield with them. You could not see a speck of glass under the paper. Now, since it was raining, the papers almost instantly stuck to her windshield like glue and completely soaked on, to the point where wind wasn't blowing them off. I never caught her reaction or heard if she complained, but watching her scrape wet paper off her windshield in the pouring rain through our dispensary door was the most satisfying thing I've ever done during my time there. So simple, yet so effective. I'm sure this lady just about melted having to be in the rain for all that time scraping the papers off her windshield, but hey, you shouldn't have parked in a reserved parking spot during peak hours. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today, so if you have a favorite story of the day, let me know which story and why in the comments down below. But besides that, if you enjoyed the video today, please give the video a like and subscribe if you haven't and turn notifications on so you'll never miss an upcoming video. No matter what you did, whether it was just watching the video, subscribing, commenting, thank you all so very much for supporting me right here on the Storytime channel. I hope you all have a wonderful day and I'll see you all next time right here.